The moment Wilhelmina Jensen saw blood seeping through the cowboy's shirt sleeve as he stumbled through the trading post door, she knew her quiet afternoon of translating correspondence between the Washoe traders and the post owner would take an unexpected turn. It was June 1877 in Downieville, California, nestled in the Sierra Nevada mountains where gold fever had long since cooled, but commerce still thrived between settlers, miners, and the native peoples who had inhabited these lands for generations. The trading post sat at the edge of town, a weathered wooden structure that smelled of leather, tobacco, and the dried herbs the Washoe women brought to barter. Wilhelmina had been working there for nearly 2 years since arriving from San Francisco, her gift for languages making her invaluable to Samuel Pritchard, the post owner who could barely manage English, let alone the complex dialects of the tribes who came to trade. The cowboy was tall, perhaps 6 feet, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of creek water after spring melt. Despite the obvious pain etched across his features, he moved with a deliberate grace that spoke of years in the saddle. His dark hair needed cutting, falling past his collar, and several days of stubble shadowed his jaw. He couldn't have been more than 26 or 27, Wilhelmina estimated, just a handful of years older than her own 23. "I need supplies," he said, his voice rougher than gravel but somehow gentle too. "Bandages, whiskey for cleaning, needle and thread if you have it." Samuel had gone to Sacramento for the week, leaving Wilhelmina to manage the post alone, something that would have been scandalous in more civilized society but was merely practical in Downieville. She came around the counter quickly, her simple blue calico dress swishing against her legs. "You need a doctor," she said firmly. "Doc Hendricks is just 3 buildings down the street." The cowboy shook his head, and Wilhelmina noticed how he kept his right arm pressed close to his body. "Can't afford a doctor, just need to clean it and stitch it myself. Done it before." "With your left hand?" Wilhelmina challenged, raising an eyebrow, "because unless you are uncommonly talented, you will make a mess of it." For the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered in those creek water eyes. "You offering to help, miss?" "I am saying that if you bleed all over Mr. Pritchard's floor, I will be the one scrubbing it up, so it is in my best interest to see you properly tended." She gestured toward the back room where Samuel kept a cot for the occasional overnight trading session. "Sit down before you fall down." The cowboy studied her for a long moment, and Wilhelmina felt the weight of his gaze like something physical. Then he nodded once and moved toward the back room with that same deliberate grace, though she noticed he steadied himself briefly against a shelf of tinned goods. The back room was small, cluttered with excess inventory and accounting ledgers, but the cot was clean. Wilhelmina lit 2 additional lamps to supplement the afternoon light filtering through the single window. She gathered the supplies he had requested, adding clean cloths and a basin of water from the pump outside. "I will need you to remove your shirt," she said, setting everything on an overturned crate beside the cot. The cowboy complied without false modesty, unbuttoning his shirt one-handed and shrugging carefully out of it. The wound was a long gash along his upper right arm, still bleeding sluggishly but not the pulsing flow that would indicate a severed artery. The edges were ragged, as though something had torn rather than cut cleanly. "Barbed wire," the cowboy said, noticing her examination. "Caught it while moving cattle through a narrow pass. Stupid mistake." Wilhelmina had tended injuries before. Growing up in San Francisco's less fashionable neighborhoods had taught her practical skills that her brief finishing school education never addressed. She poured whiskey over her hands first, then began cleaning the wound with efficient, gentle movements. The cowboy never flinched, though she saw his jaw tighten. His eyes remained on her face, watching her with an intensity that made her unusually aware of the loose strand of dark blonde hair that had escaped her bun, the freckles scattered across her nose that no amount of lemon juice seemed to fade. "You have a name, Cowboy?" she asked, mostly to distract herself from that steady gaze. "Nathan Hall," he said. "Most call me Nate. I am Wilhelmina Jensen, though most call me Mina." She threaded the needle with practiced efficiency. "This is going to hurt," I figured. She worked quickly, her stitches small and neat, learned from mending countless garments but translating surprisingly well to flesh. Nathan Hall watched her the entire time, and though sweat beaded on his forehead, he made no sound beyond measured breathing. "You are good at that," he said when she tied off the final stitch. "I am good at many things people do not expect," Wilhelmina replied, cleaning the area once more before beginning to wrap it with clean bandages. "Languages, primarily. I speak English, Spanish, French, German, and several of the local tribal dialects." "That why they call you the voice of the trading post?" Wilhelmina looked up, surprised. "You have heard of me?" Heard Pritchard had hired a lady translator. Heard she was smart as a whip and twice as sharp. Something that was definitely amusement warmed his expression now. Heard she was pretty too, though that does not capture it properly. Heat flooded Wilhelmina's cheeks, and she focused intently on securing the bandage. "You should change this dressing twice daily. Keep it clean. If you see red streaks spreading from the wound or feel fever coming on, find a doctor regardless of cost." Nathan reached out with his left hand, his fingers brushing her wrist with surprising gentleness. "Thank you." The touch lasted only a moment, but Wilhelmina felt it like a brand. She stepped back, suddenly flustered in a way that annoyed her. She was not some silly girl to lose composure over a handsome cowboy's touch. "The supplies," she said briskly, moving toward the door. "I will total your cost." Back in the main room, she wrapped the remaining bandages, the whiskey, and some extra thread. Nathan emerged from the back room, his shirt on but unbuttoned, revealing a chest marked with old scars that spoke of a hard life. He pulled out a worn leather wallet, counting coins carefully. "I can pay for the supplies," he said. "What do I owe for your doctoring?" "Nothing," Wilhelmina said. "I am not a doctor. I merely prevented bloodstains on the floor, Miss Jensen." His voice was serious now. "I pay my debts, name a price." "Then you can owe me," Wilhelmina said, surprising herself. "If you are around Downieville for any length of time, I am sure we will be even eventually." Nathan studied her again with that penetrating gaze, then nodded slowly. "I will be around. Got work at the Turner Ranch 5 miles south. They need experienced hands for the summer drive. Then I imagine I will see you again." Wilhelmina handed him the wrapped supplies, careful not to let their fingers touch this time. He lingered a moment longer, as though wanting to say something else, then settled his hat on his head and tipped it to her. "Miss Jensen, Mr. Hall." She watched through the window as he mounted a buckskin mare tied outside, moving easily despite his injury. He sat the horse like he had been born in the saddle, and as he rode down Downieville's main street, several people stopped to look. Wilhelmina was still watching when 3 washerwomen entered the trading post, baskets laden with medicinal herbs and intricate beadwork to trade. The afternoon passed in the familiar rhythm of translation and negotiation. The washerwomen spoke a northern Paiute dialect that Wilhelmina had worked hard to learn, sitting for hours with patient teachers who appreciated her genuine interest in their language and culture. Today they wanted flour, sugar, coffee, and fabric in exchange for their goods. Wilhelmina negotiated fairly, knowing Samuel trusted her judgment and also knowing these women had families to feed. As the sun lowered toward the western peaks, painting the mountains in shades of gold and amber, Wilhelmina found her thoughts drifting back to Nathan Hall. There had been something in his eyes, something in the way he looked at her, that lingered in her mind like a half-remembered melody. She scolded herself for such foolishness. She had not come to Downieville to lose her head over cowboys, no matter how handsome or how gentle their touch. She had come to escape San Francisco, to escape the stifling expectations of her merchant father who wanted her married to one of his business associates, a man 30 years her senior with wandering hands and whiskey breath. She had come for independence, for the freedom to use her mind and skills, for something more than being ornamental furniture in a wealthy man's home. Yet as she closed the trading post for the evening and walked to her small rented room above the milliner's shop, Wilhelmina could not quite banish Nathan Hall from her thoughts. 3 days passed before he returned. Wilhelmina was in the midst of translating a complicated letter for a Chinese merchant who ran the laundry service, his English still uncertain, though his business was thriving. She had taught herself enough Cantonese to manage basic communication, and he appreciated having official documents properly rendered. She was concentrating on finding the right English phrasing for a concept that did not translate directly when the door opened, and Nathan walked in. He looked better, she noted immediately. The pallor was gone from his face, replaced by healthy color, and he moved his right arm more freely. He waited patiently while she finished with Mr. Chen, refusing payment as always because Mr. Chen kept her few dresses immaculately cleaned in exchange. When they were alone, Nathan approached the counter, setting down a bundle wrapped in brown paper. "I brought you something," he said. Wilhelmina looked from the package to his face. "Mr. Hall, that is not necessary. I told you I pay my debts." He pushed the package toward her. "Open it." She unwrapped it carefully, revealing a book. Not just any book, but a beautiful leather-bound copy of works by Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, the Mexican poet and scholar in the original Spanish. Wilhelmina's breath caught. Such a book would have cost dearly, and finding it in a mining town like Downieville seemed nearly impossible. "How did you?" she began. "Had to ride to Nevada City to find a bookshop with anything decent," Nathan said. "Told the owner I was looking for something in Spanish for a lady who was smart as a whip and twice as sharp. He suggested that one." Wilhelmina ran her fingers over the embossed leather, genuinely moved. No one had ever given her such a thoughtful gift. "This is too much." "No," Nathan said softly. "It is not nearly enough for what you did, but it is a start." She looked up at him, at those creek water eyes that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed walls. "Thank you, truly. There is something else." He shifted his weight, and for the first time she saw him uncertain. "I was wondering if you might allow me to call on you properly. Take you to dinner perhaps, or a walk if you prefer. Whatever would be appropriate." Wilhelmina's heart did an odd little skip. She should say no. She had no time for courting, no interest in complications. Yet she found herself saying, "There is a church social on Saturday evening. If you would like to accompany me, that would be acceptable." The smile that broke across Nathan's face transformed him, erasing the hard lines and revealing genuine joy. "I would like that very much. What time should I come by?" They made arrangements, and after Nathan left, Wilhelmina stood holding the book of poetry, wondering what exactly she was getting herself into. Yet she could not quite regret accepting. There was something about Nathan Hall, something beyond his handsome face and strong hands. Something in the way he truly listened when she spoke, the way he treated her as an equal, the way he had ridden to another town just to find the right gift. Saturday arrived too slowly and too quickly all at once. Wilhelmina changed her dress 3 times before settling on her best one, a deep green cotton with cream lace at the collar and cuffs. She had even convinced her unruly hair to behave, pinning it into a neat chignon at the nape of her neck. When Nathan arrived precisely on time, she saw the appreciation in his eyes and felt absurdly pleased. He had clearly made an effort, too. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, his jaw freshly shaved, and he wore clean dark trousers with a white shirt and string tie. He offered his arm with old-fashioned courtesy, and they walked together toward the church at the center of town. The social was well attended, practically the whole town turning out for the chance to eat good food and socialize. Long tables groaned under the weight of contributed dishes, while children ran between the adults playing tag. A small group of musicians tuned their instruments for dancing later in the evening. Wilhelmina introduced Nathan to several people, including Martha Simmons, the schoolteacher who was her closest friend in Downieville. Martha raised an approving eyebrow at Nathan's polite manners and intelligent conversation. When Reverend Thomas came by, Nathan spoke respectfully, but without the false piety some men adopted in front of clergy. They filled plates with fried chicken, potato salad, and fresh bread, finding a spot near the edge of the gathering where they could talk more privately. The evening air was pleasant, cooling from the day's heat but still comfortable, carrying the scent of pine from the surrounding mountains. "Tell me about yourself," Wilhelmina said, curious to know more about this man who had so quickly captured her attention. "Where are you from originally?" Nathan took a moment before answering, and she sensed this was not a story he shared often. Born in Texas. Father was a rancher, had a decent spread until the war came. He fought for the Confederacy, died at Shiloh when I was 12. Mother tried to hold the ranch together, but without him. He shook his head. She passed the following winter. Fever. I have been working ranches ever since, moving where the work is, learning the trade. "I am sorry," Wilhelmina said softly. "That must have been incredibly difficult, made me who I am," Nathan said simply. "Taught me to rely on myself, to value honest work." He looked at her directly. "Your turn. How does a lady who speaks 6 languages end up in a mining town trading post?" Wilhelmina smiled wryly. "Rebellion, mostly. My father is a successful merchant in San Francisco. He had my life planned out completely. Good marriage to a business associate, children, running a proper household. Never mind what I wanted." "And what did you want?" Nathan asked. "To use my mind, to be valued for something beyond my appearance or family connections, to choose my own path." She met his gaze steadily. "So I took money I had saved from my grandmother's inheritance and came here. Found work at the trading post. Father was furious, but I was 21, legally able to make my own choices. He sends letters occasionally, demanding I come home and stop this foolishness, but I ignore them." "Good for you," Nathan said, and she could tell he meant it. "Takes courage to break away from what is expected." "Sometimes I think it was more stubbornness than courage," Wilhelmina admitted. "Sometimes those are the same thing." They talked as the sun set and the musicians began playing. Nathan asked intelligent questions about her translation work, genuinely interested in how she had learned the native dialects. She asked about cattle ranching, and he described the work with obvious love for it despite the hardships. They discovered a shared appreciation for poetry, though Nathan admitted he did not read as fluently as he would like, having had his education cut short by his father's death. When the dancing began, Nathan stood and offered his hand. "I should warn you I am not particularly graceful." "That makes 2 of us," Wilhelmina said, taking his hand, but he was wrong. He moved with the same deliberate grace she had noticed that first day, leading her through a simple waltz with quiet confidence. His right arm was strong around her waist, his left hand warm where it held hers. They did not speak now, just moved together, and Wilhelmina felt something shift inside her chest, a wall she had built beginning to crack. When the dance ended, they stepped apart reluctantly. Nathan's eyes held hers for a long moment, and she saw the same awareness there, the same recognition that something significant was happening between them. "I should walk you home," he said quietly. The walk back to her room above the milliner's shop was too short. They went slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. The streets of Downieville were quiet now, most folks still at the social. Stars blazed overhead in the clear mountain air, so bright and numerous they seemed to crowd the sky. At her door, Nathan removed his hat, turning it in his hands. "I had a real good time tonight." "As did I," Wilhelmina said. "Could I call on you again? Maybe take you riding next Sunday if you are free. I know a pretty spot by the river where the wildflowers are blooming." "I would like that," Wilhelmina said, and knew she meant it more than she had meant anything in a long time. Nathan smiled, that transformative expression that made her heart skip. Then, slowly, giving her time to step back if she wished, he leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "Good night, Mina." "Good night, Nathan." She watched him walk away into the night, one hand pressed to where his lips had touched her forehead, feeling like her carefully ordered world had been turned completely upside down. The following week passed in a haze of anticipation. Wilhelmina found herself distracted during translations, her mind wandering to Sunday and the promised ride. Martha teased her mercilessly, delighted to see her normally focused friend so obviously smitten. "He is a good man," Martha said on Friday as they shared lunch. "I asked around. Everyone at the Turner Ranch speaks highly of him. Hard worker, fair dealer, kind to the horses. That last one tells you a lot about a man's character." "I am not planning a wedding," Wilhelmina protested, though without much heat. "It is just a ride by the river." Martha said, her expression knowing. "And I am the Queen of England." But Sunday brought complications before pleasure. Wilhelmina was preparing for Nathan's arrival, changing into her riding skirt and boots, when urgent knocking sounded at her door. She opened it to find Running Deer, one of the Washoe women who traded regularly at the post, looking distressed. "Please," Running Deer said in her dialect, words tumbling out quickly. "My daughter, Little Bird, she is very sick. The white doctor will not come to our village. I need medicine. The trading post is closed. I saw your light. Please." Wilhelmina did not hesitate. "Tell me what symptoms she has." Running Deer described them: high fever, difficulty breathing, a barking cough that sounded like a seal. Wilhelmina's limited medical knowledge suggested croup, something serious in a young child but treatable if caught early. "I need to get to the trading post," Wilhelmina said, grabbing her key. "Then I will come with you to your village." "But it is Sunday, your day of rest," Running Deer protested. "Some things are more important than rest," Wilhelmina said firmly. They hurried to the trading post and Wilhelmina gathered supplies: honey, herbs, a clean cloth for making a steam tent, fever reducers. She was locking up when Nathan arrived, looking concerned. "Mina, what is wrong?" She quickly explained the situation. Without hesitation, Nathan said, "I will take you both. My horse can carry two and we can get there faster than walking." "But our plans," Wilhelmina started. "Can wait," Nathan said firmly. "A child is sick. Nothing is more important than that." The Washoe village was about 3 miles from town, nestled in a valley with a clear creek running through it. Several traditional bark houses stood alongside more modern structures. Running Deer's home was small but tidy, and inside, a girl of perhaps 6 lay on a pallet, her breathing labored and wheezing. Wilhelmina set to work immediately. heating water over the fire and creating a steam tent using the cloth draped over the child, and a pot of boiling water infused with healing herbs. She spooned honey and herbs into the girl's mouth, speaking softly in the Washoe dialect, keeping her calm. Nathan proved surprisingly helpful, following her instructions without question, holding the child upright when needed, keeping the steam going. They worked through the afternoon and into the evening. Gradually, the child's breathing eased. The fever broke near midnight. Little Bird fell into a natural sleep, her color improving, the terrible barking cough subsiding. Running Deer wept with relief, thanking Wilhelmina profusely. "You saved her life. She will need to be watched for the next few days," Wilhelmina cautioned. "Keep her drinking fluids, continue the steam treatments if the cough returns." "I will," Running Deer promised. "How can I repay you?" "There is no debt," Wilhelmina said. "I would do the same for any child." But Running Deer insisted, pressing something into Wilhelmina's hands. It was a beautiful beaded bracelet, intricate work in turquoise and white. "Please, it would honor me if you would wear this. It is protection, but also friendship." Wilhelmina accepted it, touched by the gesture, slipping it onto her wrist where it caught the firelight. Nathan and Wilhelmina rode back to Downieville in the deep hours of night, sharing his horse since Running Deer needed to stay with her daughter. Wilhelmina sat in front, Nathan's arms around her as he held the reins. She was exhausted, leaning back against his solid warmth, feeling safe in a way she had not felt in years. "You are an extraordinary woman," Nathan said softly, his voice rumbling in his chest against her back. "I only did what anyone would do." "No," Nathan said. "Most people would have made excuses. You did not even hesitate." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the horses' hooves soft on the mountain trail, the night alive with cricket song and the distant call of an owl. "I am sorry our plans were ruined," Wilhelmina said eventually. "They were not ruined," Nathan replied. "They were postponed. And honestly, Mina, today showed me more about who you are than any pleasant ride by the river could have. Showed me you have a good heart, that you care about people regardless of their background, that you act instead of just talking about acting." "It showed me something about you too," Wilhelmina admitted. "Most men would have been angry about the change of plans. You just helped without question." "My mother was Comanche," Nathan said quietly, and Wilhelmina realized this was significant, something else he rarely shared. "She married my father after her family was killed in a raid. She faced a lot of prejudice, people looking down on her, calling her savage. But she was the kindest, strongest person I ever knew. Taught me that people are people, that skin color or language does not determine worth. So when I saw that child needing help, I saw a little girl, nothing more, nothing less." Wilhelmina turned her head, trying to see his face in the darkness. "Thank you for telling me that. Figure if we are going to keep seeing each other, you should know. Some people have problems with mixed blood. Rather you know now than be surprised later." "Nathan Hall," Wilhelmina said firmly, "I could not care less about such nonsense. Your heritage is part of what makes you who you are, and who you are is a good man." She felt him relax slightly behind her, tension she had not realized he was carrying releasing. When they reached Downieville, Nathan insisted on seeing her to her door despite the late hour. At her threshold, he touched her face gently, his rough fingers infinitely careful against her cheek. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "I know I keep asking, but I need to be sure you want this. Want me?" Wilhelmina covered his hand with hers, pressing it against her cheek. "Yes, I want this. I want you." He kissed her then, not on the forehead this time, but properly, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was gentle and passionate all at once. Wilhelmina's first kiss, and it was perfect, tasting of possibility and promise. When they parted, both were breathing hard. "Go inside," Nathan said, his voice rough. "Before I forget, I am trying to be a gentleman." Wilhelmina smiled, feeling bold. "What if I do not want you to be too much of a gentleman, Mina?" he groaned. "You are killing me." But she laughed and slipped inside, closing the door but leaning against it, hearing him stand there for a long moment before his boots finally sounded on the stairs going down. After that night, they fell into a pattern of seeing each other whenever Nathan's work allowed. He rode into Downieville 3 or 4 times a week, timing his visits to when Wilhelmina closed the trading post. Sometimes they went for walks. Sometimes they simply sat in the trading post's back room and talked for hours. Nathan proved to be well-read despite his interrupted education, hungry for knowledge and discussion. They debated philosophy, politics, literature. They shared dreams and fears. Wilhelmina found herself falling, truly falling in a way she had never imagined possible. Nathan was unlike any man she had known. He listened to her opinions without condescension. He valued her intelligence. He made her laugh with dry observations about ranch life. He challenged her when he disagreed, but always respectfully. And the physical attraction between them grew stronger every time they met, every touch lingering a little longer, every kiss a little deeper. 6 weeks after that first meeting, as they sat by the Yuba River watching the sunset paint the water gold, Nathan turned to her with unusual seriousness. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and you might not like it." Wilhelmina's stomach clenched with sudden fear. "What is it?" "The summer drive is coming up. We will be taking the cattle to market in Sacramento. I will be gone for about 3 weeks. Oh, relief washed through her. She had feared something much worse. "That is part of your work, I understand." "I am going to hate every minute away from you," Nathan said, taking her hand. "These past weeks, Mina, they have been the best of my life. I wake up thinking about you. I go to sleep thinking about you. You are in every thought I have." "I feel the same way," Wilhelmina admitted. "Sometimes it frightens me how quickly this happened, how deeply I feel." "Does it have to be frightening?" Nathan asked. "Can it not just be right?" "My father used to say that anything that seems too good to be true usually is," Wilhelmina said. "With respect to your father," Nathan said, "that is a damn fool way to live. Sometimes good things are just good things, and we should accept them with gratitude instead of suspicion." He had a point. Wilhelmina had been so focused on being independent, on not needing anyone, that she had built walls around her heart. But Nathan had somehow slipped past those walls, or maybe she had let him in, and now she could not imagine her life without him in it. 3 weeks is not so long," she said, trying to convince herself as much as him. "When I get back," Nathan said, "I want to talk about the future, our future. Will you think about that while I am gone?" "Yes," Wilhelmina whispered. He kissed her then, and it was different from their other kisses, deeper and more urgent, full of unspoken promises and barely restrained desire. When they finally pulled apart, both were shaking. "I should get you back to town," Nathan said roughly. "Before I do something that would compromise your reputation." "Would that be so terrible?" Wilhelmina asked, surprising herself with her boldness. "Yes," Nathan said firmly, though she could see the war in his eyes, "because I respect you too much. When we come together that way, and we will, I want it to be right. Want you to be mine properly, with vows spoken and a future secured." The words thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. "You are talking about marriage." "I am," Nathan said. "I know it is fast, but Mina, when you know, you know. I love you. I am in love with you. Have been probably since that first day when you stitched up my arm and looked at me like I was being an idiot for not seeing a doctor." "I love you too," Wilhelmina said, the words spilling out. "I did not think I could. I thought I wanted independence more than anything. But being with you, it does not feel like giving up independence. It feels like choosing a partner, an equal. It feels like freedom, just a different kind. They held each other as the sun finished setting and the first stars appeared, making promises for the future, speaking in low voices about dreams they wanted to share. The 3 weeks Nathan was gone felt like 3 months. Wilhelmina threw herself into work, taking on extra translation projects, helping Running Deer and other Washoe families navigate interactions with town merchants, even offering informal English lessons to some of the Chinese families. But every night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, missing Nathan with an ache that was almost physical. Martha tried to distract her with social activities, but Wilhelmina was poor company, admitting finally that she was hopelessly in love. "Then what is the problem?" Martha asked. "He clearly loves you too." "What if it does not work?" Wilhelmina said. "What if we are making a mistake? We have only known each other 2 months." "My parents knew each other 3 weeks before they married," Martha said. "They were together 42 years before my father passed." "Sometimes you just know." That was what Nathan had said too. When you know, you know. The waiting felt endless until suddenly Nathan was back, riding into Downieville dusty and tired but with his face lighting up when he saw her waiting outside the trading post. He dismounted and swept her into his arms, kissing her thoroughly despite the scandalized looks from Mrs. Henderson across the street. "I missed you," he said against her hair. "I missed you too, so much." "Come riding with me," Nathan said. "There is something I want to show you." They rode together to a spot about a mile outside town, a meadow ringed with pine trees where wildflowers bloomed in profusion. Nathan dismounted and helped Wilhelmina down, then reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small wooden box. "I have been carrying this around for a week, waiting to get back to you," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold ring. "It is not fancy. I cannot give you a big house or servants or any of the things your father could provide through a wealthy match. But I can give you love, respect, partnership. I can give you a life where you are valued for your mind and spirit. I can give you everything I am." He dropped to one knee in the meadow full of flowers, looking up at her with those creek water eyes full of love and hope and vulnerability. "Wilhelmina Jensen, will you marry me?" Wilhelmina's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Nathan stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with joy and passion. They sank down into the soft grass, holding each other, kissing and touching with new freedom now that they were promised to each other. Nathan's hands traced her face, her throat, the curve of her waist through her dress. Wilhelmina's fingers tangled in his hair, learning the shape of his shoulders, his back, the strong planes of his chest through his shirt. "We should wait," Nathan said, though his voice was strained. "Do this properly." "How long?" Wilhelmina asked breathlessly. "How long do you need to plan a wedding?" "A week," Wilhelmina suggested. "I do not need anything elaborate, just us, vows, and a future." "A week," Nathan agreed. "I can wait a week." "Barely." They rode back to town and immediately went to tell Reverend Thomas, who agreed to perform the ceremony the following Saturday. Martha was thrilled, insisting on helping with preparations. Samuel Pritchard gave his blessing and offered the trading post for a small reception afterward. The week passed in a flurry of activity. Wilhelmina wrote to her father, not asking permission but informing him of her decision. She did not expect a response, and none came, but she felt it was important to tell him nonetheless. Perhaps someday he would understand. She bought fabric and Martha helped her sew a simple but elegant dress in pale blue. Nathan bought a new suit, looking uncomfortable but handsome when he tried it on. They found a small house to rent at the edge of town, 2 rooms plus a kitchen, humble but theirs. Nathan arranged to take a few days off from the ranch for a brief honeymoon. Saturday arrived sunny and warm. The church was full of friends and well-wishers. Martha, Samuel, many of the Washoe families including Running Deer and Little Bird who had fully recovered, several of Nathan's fellow ranch hands, and a surprising number of townspeople who had come to respect both Wilhelmina and Nathan. Wilhelmina walked down the aisle alone, needing no one to give her away because she was giving herself freely. Nathan stood at the altar looking overwhelmed with emotion, and when she reached him and took his hands, she saw tears in his eyes. They spoke their vows clearly and firmly, promises to love and honor, to be partners in all things, to build a life together. When Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed her with such tenderness that many in the congregation wiped their eyes. The reception at the trading post was simple but joyful. People brought food and well wishes. Running Deer gave them a beautiful blanket she had woven, explaining in the Washoe dialect that it was made with prayers for their happiness. One of Nathan's friends played the fiddle, and they danced, Wilhelmina in her blue dress and Nathan in his new suit, moving together as naturally as breathing. As the sun began to set, they slipped away to their new home. Nathan carried Wilhelmina over the threshold, both of them laughing, giddy with happiness and anticipation. Inside, Nathan set her down gently and cupped her face in his hands. "You are my wife," he said wonderingly. "And you are my husband," Wilhelmina replied. Finally. They came together with all the passion they had been holding back, helping each other out of their wedding clothes with fumbling but eager hands. Nathan was gentle and patient, making sure Wilhelmina felt only pleasure on this first night. They learned each other slowly, thoroughly, expressing with touches and kisses what words could not fully capture. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms in their narrow bed, Wilhelmina felt complete in a way she never had before. This was what she had been searching for without knowing it, not just independence but partnership with someone who saw her, valued her, loved her for exactly who she was. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Nathan replied, pulling her closer. "Today was the best day of my life. Mine too." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, the beginning of forever. The months that followed were not without challenges, but they faced them together. Wilhelmina continued working at the trading post, though Samuel eventually made her a partner in recognition of how much she had increased business through her translation services. Nathan continued at the Turner Ranch, eventually becoming foreman due to his skill and reliability. Their house remained small, but they made it a home. Wilhelmina filled it with books, Nathan with carved wooden furniture he made in his spare time. They hosted dinners for friends, Wilhelmina cooking dishes from various cultures she had learned about through her language studies. They became fixtures in the community, respected and liked. Winter came, and with it their first challenge as a married couple. The Turner Ranch faced rustlers, losing nearly 50 head of cattle in a series of night raids. Nathan spent long hours on patrol, coming home exhausted and worried. Wilhelmina noticed his stress, and one evening suggested something unexpected. "What if I tried to find out information through my Washoe contacts? They know these mountains better than anyone. They might have seen something." Nathan was reluctant at first, not wanting to put her in any danger, but Wilhelmina persisted. She spoke with Running Deer and several other Washoe families, and eventually learned that a gang had set up camp in a hidden canyon about 10 miles north. The Washoe had avoided them, sensing trouble. Nathan took the information to the sheriff in Downieville, and a posse was formed. They caught the rustlers within a week, recovering most of the stolen cattle. The Turner family was so grateful they gave Nathan a bonus, and offered him a permanent position with increased pay and the promise of buying into the ranch partnership eventually. "You did this," Nathan told Wilhelmina. "Your relationships with the Washoe, your willingness to ask for help, your intelligence, you saved the ranch." "We did this," Wilhelmina corrected. "Together." That became their motto, together. They faced everything as a team, supporting each other through difficulties and celebrating each other's successes. Spring arrived, and with it news that made Wilhelmina's heart race with joy and fear. She was pregnant. Nathan was overjoyed, immediately becoming overprotective in ways that were endearing and occasionally annoying. He wanted her to stop working, to rest constantly, to avoid any exertion. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," Wilhelmina reminded him. "I am not made of glass." "You are carrying the most precious cargo in the world," Nathan countered. "Our child. I just want to keep you both safe." They compromised. Wilhelmina reduced her hours at the trading post but continued working. Nathan built a cradle in his workshop, carved with intricate designs of mountains and trees. They prepared their small house for the new arrival, clearing space, gathering tiny clothes and blankets. Martha organized the women of the town to help, hosting a party where everyone brought gifts. Running Deer gave them a cradle board in the traditional Washoe style, beautifully decorated with beads and feathers. "For when you want to carry the baby with you," she explained. "So your hands are free to work." Wilhelmina was touched by the practical gift, by the understanding that she would want to continue being active and useful even with a child. Summer heat intensified as Wilhelmina's pregnancy progressed. In late July, on a sweltering afternoon, her labor began. Nathan was at work, and Martha sent one of her students to fetch him while she stayed with Wilhelmina. Doc Hendricks arrived to help, along with Running Deer, who had experience with many births. Labor was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next morning. Nathan was beside himself with worry, pacing outside while the women worked. When he tried to come in, Doc Hendricks shooed him away, saying he would just be in the way. Finally, as dawn light filtered through the windows, a baby's cry filled the house. Doc Hendricks opened the door to find Nathan practically falling through it in his anxiety. "You have a son," the doctor said with a smile. "Healthy and strong, lunged. Your wife is tired but doing well." Nathan rushed inside to find Wilhelmina propped against pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in one of the Washoe blankets. "His son. Their son. He is perfect," Nathan whispered, touching the baby's impossibly small hand with one finger. "He has your eyes," Wilhelmina said softly. They named him William Nathan Hall, William for Wilhelmina's mother who had passed when she was young, Nathan for his father. From the moment he entered the world, little William was loved fiercely by both parents and by the community that had embraced his family. The years that followed brought changes. Nathan did become a partner in the Turner Ranch, investing their savings wisely. Wilhelmina opened a language school in addition to her trading post work, teaching English to immigrants and native peoples, while also teaching Spanish and German to townspeople who wanted to expand their opportunities. Their family grew. A daughter, Rose Martha Hall, arrived 2 years after William, named for the wild roses that grew in the meadow where Nathan had proposed, and for Martha, who had become like a sister to Wilhelmina. Then another son, Thomas Samuel Hall, named for the Reverend who had married them and the trading post owner who had given Wilhelmina her start. Their house became too small, and Nathan built them a larger one on a piece of land they bought between town and the ranch. It was not a mansion, but it was comfortable and full of love. There was room for Nathan's workshop, for Wilhelmina's study where she worked on translations, for the children to play. Nathan proved to be a devoted father, patient and kind, teaching his sons to ride and rope, teaching his daughter that she could do anything her brothers could do. Wilhelmina raised all 3 children to be bilingual, speaking English and Spanish at home, occasionally teaching them phrases in other languages. She read to them constantly, instilling a love of learning. William grew into a tall boy with his father's build and his mother's curiosity, always asking questions, always wanting to understand how things worked. Rose was fierce and independent, climbing trees and racing horses, much to Nathan's mixed pride and terror. Thomas was the gentle one, more interested in books and drawing than ranching, and neither parent ever pressured him to be something he was not. The Washoe families remained close friends. Little Bird, now a young woman, became a frequent visitor, teaching Rose traditional beadwork and helping Wilhelmina with her language school. Running Deer often said that Wilhelmina saving her daughter had not just saved one life, but had bridged 2 communities, creating understanding where there had been only distance. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan took Wilhelmina back to the meadow where he had proposed. The children were staying with Martha for the evening, giving them rare time alone. They walked through the wildflowers, older now but still deeply in love. "Do you ever regret it?" Nathan asked. "Choosing this life, you could have had so much more if you had married someone your father approved of." Wilhelmina turned to him, cupping his beloved face in her hands. "I have everything I want, a partner who respects me, work that fulfills me, children I adore, love that sustains me. What more could there possibly be?" "When you put it that way," Nathan said, smiling. "Besides," Wilhelmina added, "you were the one who taught me that good things do not have to be suspicious. Sometimes they are just good things and we should accept them with gratitude." "I said that?" Nathan asked. "You did. Right here, actually, 10 years ago when you proposed." "I was a wise man even then," Nathan joked, then grew serious. "But really, Mina, these have been the best years of my life. Every morning I wake up and see you beside me, and I feel grateful. Every time I see our children growing strong and kind, I feel grateful. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." "And you are mine," Wilhelmina said softly. They made love there in the meadow as the sun set, with the freedom and passion of people who knew each other completely, who had built a life together through love and choice and partnership. Afterward, lying in the grass watching stars appear, Wilhelmina reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She thought about that first day, Nathan stumbling into the trading post with blood on his sleeve. She thought about how she had been so determined to need no one, to stand alone. She thought about how Nathan had shown his love not through words but through actions. Riding to another town to find the perfect book, helping a sick child without hesitation, proposing in a meadow full of flowers, building furniture for their home, being a devoted father, supporting her dreams even when they were unconventional. He had needed no words to show his love, she realized. Every action, every choice, every moment had been a declaration more powerful than any speech. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "About love," Wilhelmina said. "About how you show it in everything you do." "Same as you," Nathan replied. "You showed your love by trusting me, by building this life with me, by being my partner in everything. Words are nice, but actions are what matter." "We should teach that to our children," Wilhelmina said. "I think we already are," Nathan replied. "Just by showing them how we love each other." More years passed. The children grew into young adults, each finding their own path. William followed his father into ranching, eventually taking over the partnership when the Turners retired. Rose shocked everyone by becoming a telegraph operator, then a newspaper reporter, traveling throughout California to cover stories. Thomas became a teacher, working alongside Wilhelmina in the language school, and eventually taking it over when she decided to focus on writing a comprehensive guide to Native American languages of the Sierra Nevada region. Nathan and Wilhelmina grew older together, their love deepening with time. They became grandparents when William married a rancher's daughter and had 3 children of his own. Rose remained unmarried, claiming she was married to her work, but she was a devoted aunt who spoiled her nieces and nephews terribly. Thomas eventually married a fellow teacher, a gentle man named Daniel whom Nathan and Wilhelmina welcomed into their family without hesitation, grateful that their son had found someone who made him happy. By their 30th anniversary, Downieville had changed significantly. The mining had mostly played out, but the town survived through ranching, timber, and agriculture. The railroad had come through, connecting them to the wider world. New families arrived while old ones remained. The Washoe still came to trade, though their numbers had diminished, pressured by expanding settlements. Wilhelmina did what she could to advocate for them, writing letters to government officials, documenting their languages and cultures before they were lost. Nathan's hair had gone silver, but he still sat a horse like he was born to it. Wilhelmina's dark blonde hair had faded to a softer shade, streaked with gray, but her mind remained sharp as ever. They still lived in the house Nathan had built, though he had added on over the years, creating more space as their family expanded. On a warm summer evening, they sat on their porch watching the sun set over the mountains, holding hands the way they had for 3 decades. Their children and grandchildren were gathered inside for a family dinner, the sounds of laughter and conversation drifting out. "We built something good," Nathan said quietly. "We did," Wilhelmina agreed. "Something real and lasting. I love you, Mina. Have since the moment you lectured me about not seeing a doctor while stitching up my arm with those small, perfect stitches. I love you too. Have since you brought me that book of poetry, since you helped that sick child without question, since you looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. You are," Nathan said simply. "Always have been." "And you are mine," Wilhelmina replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. Inside, someone called them to dinner, but they took another moment, savoring the peace, the love, the life they had built together. Finally, they stood, Nathan's hand still in Wilhelmina's, and walked into the house full of family and love and the legacy they had created. A life built on partnership, respect, and love shown through actions rather than empty words. That night, after everyone had gone home and it was just the 2 of them again, Nathan held Wilhelmina close in the bed they had shared for 30 years. "You remember what I said that first night after the social?" he asked. "About how you helped that child." "You said I was an extraordinary woman," Wilhelmina replied. "Still true," Nathan said. "More true every day. You made me a better man, Mina. Gave me a life I never thought I would have. A family, a home, a purpose beyond just surviving." "You did the same for me," Wilhelmina said. "You taught me that independence did not have to mean being alone. You showed me that the right partnership makes you stronger, not weaker." "We were lucky to find each other," Nathan said. "Luck and stubbornness," Wilhelmina replied with a smile. "You were stubborn enough to keep coming back, and I was stubborn enough to let you." Nathan laughed, the sound rumbling in his chest where Wilhelmina's head rested. "Good thing we are both stubborn then." They fell asleep like that, the same way they had on their wedding night 30 years earlier, wrapped around each other, content and complete. More years came and went. They celebrated 40 years of marriage, then 45. Nathan's hands developed arthritis, making it harder to do the fine carving work he loved, but he adapted, working with larger pieces, teaching William's oldest son the craft. Wilhelmina's eyesight faded slightly, requiring spectacles for reading, but she continued her work documenting languages, now aided by Thomas, who had become an accomplished linguist in his own right. Rose returned home after years of traveling, ready to settle down, and surprised everyone by marrying the local doctor, a widower who had recently moved to Downieville. She brought to the marriage a fierce independence and strong opinions that made for lively dinners at Nathan and Wilhelmina's house. The doctor seemed to adore her spirit, and they were unexpectedly happy, despite the unconventional pairing. As they approached their 50th anniversary, their children wanted to throw a large celebration, inviting everyone in Downieville and the surrounding area. But Nathan and Wilhelmina requested something simpler. Just family gathered in the meadow where Nathan had proposed, where they had returned so many times over the decades. On a perfect summer day, much like that day 50 years earlier, they all went to the meadow. William and his family, Rose and her husband, Thomas and Daniel, the grandchildren, even a great-grandchild or two. They spread blankets and shared food and stories. The older grandchildren took the younger ones to gather wildflowers, the same flowers that had bloomed here for generations. As the afternoon sun warmed the meadow, Nathan stood with some difficulty, his body showing the wear of 78 years and a life of hard work. He offered his hand to Wilhelmina, now 75 but still beautiful in his eyes, and helped her to her feet. 50 years ago, right here, I asked this woman to marry me, Nathan said to the gathered family. Best decision I ever made. She has been my partner, my friend, my love through everything. She has made me proud every single day we have been together. She has been an amazing mother to our children and a wonderful grandmother to all these grandchildren. His voice broke slightly with emotion, and Wilhelmina squeezed his hand. We have built a life together that has been better than anything I could have imagined back when I was a young cowboy drifting from ranch to ranch with nothing to my name but a horse and some skill with cattle. Mina gave me a home, a family, a purpose. She gave me love. He turned to her, cupping her face the way he had done countless times. I love you, Wilhelmina Jensen Hall, today just like the day I married you, just like every day in between, just like I will love you for whatever time we have left. I love you too, Nathan Hall, Wilhelmina said, tears streaming down her face. You have been the greatest blessing of my life. You showed me that love is not about grand gestures or flowery speeches. It is about showing up every day, about supporting your partner's dreams, about building something together that is bigger than either of you alone. You did that. We did that. She gestured to their gathered family. Look at what we created. Not just children and grandchildren, but a legacy of love and respect and acceptance. We raised children who know how to love well, who value people for who they are rather than what they look like or where they come from. We built bridges between communities. We made a difference in our small corner of the world. Their children applauded, and soon everyone joined in. Then William produced a fiddle, the same one that had been played at their wedding reception 50 years earlier, miraculously preserved. He began playing a waltz, and Nathan bowed formally to Wilhelmina. May I have this dance, Mrs. Hall? You may, Mr. Hall. They danced in the meadow surrounded by wildflowers and family, moving slowly now, their bodies not as strong as they once were, but their love as powerful as ever. Everyone watched, many wiping away tears, witnessing the beautiful testament to enduring love. When the song ended, Nathan kissed Wilhelmina gently, and their great-grandchildren ran up to hug them, not understanding the full weight of the moment but feeling the love that saturated the air. That night back in their home, Nathan and Wilhelmina lay in bed reviewing the day. "It was perfect," Wilhelmina said. "Everything I could have wanted." "You are everything I could have wanted," Nathan replied. "Then, now, always." They fell asleep holding hands, the way they had nearly every night for 50 years, secure in the knowledge that they had lived well, loved well, and left a legacy that would outlast them both. Nathan passed peacefully in his sleep 3 years later at the age of 81. He simply did not wake up one morning, his hand still holding Wilhelmina's. The doctor said his heart had simply worn out after a long, full life. The funeral was attended by what seemed like the entire town and the surrounding ranches. People spoke of his fairness, his kindness, his skill as a rancher and a father. But mostly they spoke of his devotion to Wilhelmina, how everyone had seen the way he looked at her, the way he supported her unconventional interests and celebrated her intelligence. Wilhelmina grieved deeply, but not hopelessly. She had been blessed with 53 years of marriage to a man who had loved her well. She had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carried on the legacy of that love. She had a life well lived with no regrets. She continued living in the house Nathan had built, refusing to move in with any of her children despite their offers. She was 87 now, but still sharp of mind, still working on her language documentation project. Thomas came by daily to check on her, and at least one family member visited every day. She spent her time finishing her comprehensive guide to Native American languages, a project that had taken decades. Thomas helped her prepare it for publication, and it was eventually accepted by a university press, becoming an important resource for linguists and anthropologists. Running Deer had passed years earlier, but her granddaughter came to the book launch, now an elder herself, and spoke about how Wilhelmina had been a bridge between worlds, someone who had honored and preserved cultures that were rapidly disappearing. On summer evenings, Wilhelmina often sat on her porch, remembering. She thought about that first day when Nathan had walked into the trading post with blood on his sleeve. She thought about the book of poetry, the meadow proposal, their wedding day, the birth of each child, every anniversary, every challenge faced and overcome together. She thought about how he had shown his love not through words but through actions, building furniture for their home, supporting her language work when other men would have demanded she focus only on domestic duties, teaching their daughter that she was just as capable as her brothers, welcoming their son's unconventional family without judgment, being present every day in small and large ways. She thought about how blessed she had been to find him, to have that life together, to build something meaningful and lasting. Wilhelmina lived to be 92 years old, passing gently in her sleep in the house Nathan had built, surrounded by photographs of their life together, shelves full of books, and the memories of 53 years of love. Her children found her in the morning, her face peaceful, one hand stretched out as though reaching for Nathan's. They buried her beside him in the Downieville cemetery, under a simple headstone that read, Wilhelmina Jensen Hall, 1854–1946, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She built bridges. Next to Nathan's stone that read, Nathan Hall, 1851–1934, beloved husband, father, grandfather. He showed his love. At the funeral, Thomas spoke about his parents' legacy. They taught us that love is a choice you make every day, not just in words but in actions. They showed us that partnership means supporting each other's dreams, celebrating each other's successes, facing challenges together. They demonstrated that you can honor tradition while breaking barriers, that you can be deeply in love while maintaining your individual identities. They built something beautiful together, and that beauty lives on in all of us who were blessed to be their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The family gathered afterward at the house Nathan had built, now passed to William, who had promised to preserve it as a reminder of his parents' legacy. They shared stories and memories, laughed and cried together, celebrating a love story that had spanned more than half a century. Rose, now in her 70s herself, stood in the meadow behind the house, the one where her father had proposed to her mother so many years ago. Wildflowers still bloomed here, generation after generation, constant and beautiful. She thought about her parents dancing here on their 50th anniversary, how you could see the love between them despite their aged bodies, how that love had never faded or diminished. She thought about how her father had needed no words to show his love, how every action had been a declaration. And she thought about how her mother had recognized that, valued it, returned it. "Thank you," Rose whispered to the wind, to her parents' memory, to the legacy they had left. "Thank you for showing us how it is done." The wind rustled through the meadow grass, carrying the scent of wildflowers, and if you believed in such things, you might say it sounded almost like laughter, like two voices joined in joy, like love that transcends time and death and continues forever. In the years that followed, the family kept Nathan and Wilhelmina's story alive, passing it down to new generations. They told it to children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, ensuring that the memory of that cowboy and that translator, who had found each other in a trading post in Downieville, California in 1877, would never be forgotten. They told how she had been translating at the trading post, how he had needed no words to show his love, just actions and devotion, and a lifetime of choosing her every single day. They told how she had shown her love by trusting him, by building a partnership with him, by creating a life that honored both their dreams. They told it as a testament to what love could be when two people respected each other, supported each other, and committed to building something together. They told it as a reminder that the best love stories are not about grand gestures or perfect circumstances, but about two imperfect people choosing each other again and again, day after day, year after year, for a lifetime. And in the telling, Nathan and Wilhelmina lived on, their love story eternal, their legacy enduring, their lesson simple but profound. True love is shown through actions, built through partnership, and measured in the life you create together. The meadow still blooms with wildflowers every summer. The house Nathan built still stands, now a historical landmark, preserved by the family and occasionally opened for tours. People walk through its rooms and see the furniture Nathan carved, the shelves Wilhelmina filled with books, the photographs documenting a life well lived. They hear the story of the cowboy and the translator, and they leave inspired, carrying with them the reminder that love, real and lasting love, is built through choice and action and unwavering commitment. In Downieville, California, in the Sierra Nevada mountains where gold fever once raged and where commerce still flows between diverse peoples, the story of Nathan Hall and Wilhelmina Jensen is remembered and cherished. It is a story of the Wild West, yes, but more than that, it is a story of love transcending barriers, of partnership creating something beautiful, of two souls finding each other against the odds and building a legacy that outlasted them both. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, perhaps Nathan still holds Wilhelmina's hand, still looks at her with creek-water eyes full of love, still shows through every action that she is and always will be the best thing that ever happened to him. Perhaps she still leans into his embrace, still marvels at finding a partner who valued her mind as much as her heart, still knows with absolute certainty that choosing him was the best decision she ever made. Their story ended as all stories must, but their love continues, passed down through generations, a light that still shines, showing others the way, proving that true love, love built on respect and partnership and daily choice, never truly dies. It transforms, it endures, it lives on in the hearts and lives of everyone it touches. And that, in the end, is the greatest love story of all.